Okay, we are a couple minutes after hours, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, welcome everybody to the March National Pilot Webinar. Just a few housekeeping items here. These calls are recorded, and they're posted on the NBS Trend website and our YouTube channel. If you have any, these are open discussions, especially today. We're going to have reports from the pilot sites, people that are piloting different conditions. So if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself. However, keep yourself on mute if a speaker is speaking. So I'm going to start off just checking in to see if we have anybody that is new to these calls. If you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself, please do so now. All right, I guess everybody has been on these calls for a while, so I'll continue to move forward and I will get some updates. We'll go updates starting with New York. I saw Joe's on the line. I'm not sure who's giving an update from New York State, but feel free to update on any of these topics.
I can give an update on MPS2 and Screen Plus.
Sure.
MPS2 is part of Screen Plus, just so you know that we have not had any true referrals yet for that. As far as adding that to the panel, we're looking to do that, but not real soon. In the next, we're not budgeted for it for this year. We'll see how that goes for next year. With Screen Plus, we have about 5,000 babies we've screened so far. That project has really picked up in the past 4 months with the addition of some extra, I think 3 hospitals or something like that. And we did have a real Gaucher patient detected, but one with more of a common later onset type of variant. And with that project, we also measured glucosylsphingosine, which is kind of like the counterpart to the psychosine from the Krabbe world. And that marker was considered positive. So everything sort of jibed together for that as being a true case. We don't have any follow-up information on that case yet. And then Krabbe, I believe you said that Michelle had given an update last time, and we don't have any new cases or updates for true cases since last time she gave an update. I think Michelle's given an update on CMV and GAMT.
Yeah, thanks, Joe, and hello, everybody. For GAMT, since we've started, we have 28 total referrals, 1 identified case, which was the older case. So since the last update on the July call, we've had 4 new referrals. For the CCMV pilot, a lot of things are in process. We are working on our FSMA, the security plan with NICHD and staff there to help us with that. We have assembled our advisory committee. We had our first full afternoon virtual meeting to talk about the project on November 29th of 2022. We're working on adding a second parent representative to our advisory committee, and our next call with this group will be in May of 2023. We're also in the process of setting up a URL for the pilot study and an opt-out using a QR code would be on our brochures. So we're in the process of getting that all in line as well. Working on the assay validation, we're settling on the PerkinElmer-EONIS qPCR assay using the dry extraction and wet chemistry. In our hands, this gives us flexibility. It has a short runtime and it's automatable, and it's a sensitive assay. Along those lines, we hired 1 staff. The second hiring for the laboratory is in process, and both of those lab staff will be, running the assay on a daily basis. We also hired a follow-up staff, and she is working on brochures for education and also the opt-out process and working with our specialty care centers. We've lined up 10 specialty care centers across the state to do follow-up for CMV. They're a very engaged group. Sarah Bradley kind of schedules bi-weekly meetings with them. And we're working on actually doing maybe a longer term follow-up after the project ends. And we are working towards a July 1 start date. That's it.
And I think I missed I think the 28 referrals was not under CMV, Michelle.
Yeah.
GAMP, got it. Any other questions for Michelle? I had one question. So I'm assuming the advisory committee that you're gonna have for CMV is different than your state advisory committee?
We don't have a state advisory. It's just for this project.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And I see Dr. Friedenberg has her hand up.
Yeah. Hey, Michelle, are you doing this as an independent essay? Or are you thinking about multiplexing it or?
Right now, it's going to be independent.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
It looks like there was also a question in the chat from Kate Tullis. What was the denominator for GAMP?
I don't know, since March of 2018 or October of 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, 1 million plus.
We started with NPS 1, right?
Yeah. You have
Yeah.
that number?
Well, we have a 1.1 million babies screened and it's about 10%. So yeah, Michelle hit it with about 1 million. By baby, I mean samples screened, is not baby screened.
Samples.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So it's about 10% less.
So approximately 1 million babies.
Yep.
Do we have any other questions?
There's another question in the chat from Richard Parade. Will New York be eventually updating us on the status of the Guardian project?
I can do that at some point. I know Wendy is giving a talk on progress at the ACMG meeting.
Yeah, and we planned on having, Dr. Chung gave a presentation during the January meeting, and we plan on having her come back and give an update probably in August on her project, the progress with her project, along with Dr. Holmes on BabySeq 2. May, do we have any other questions in the chat?
I think that was it. Dr. Colburn posted a comment. I don't know if he wanted to talk about that further, but it was more just.
Ryan, you want to unmute yourself? Sorry, I'm trying to, May's helping me out. Thanks, May, for helping me out with the chat. But Ryan, you want to discuss your comment in the chat?
I definitely didn't need to derail the rest of the meeting. I meant to send a more heartfelt and sort of direct message to everybody that contributed data, but we finally got out, while the manuscript's still going through the review process, we finally got out a poster at Worlds with 11.7 million newborns screened for Pompe, out of an estimated total 15 million worldwide as of now that should have been screened. And so a lot of you guys have contributed to the data on that. I've owed you updates on it. A copy of the poster there, a more in-depth thank you is coming. We uncovered some really cool things along the way. And so my point in putting it in the chat was just check it out. And if there's anything that piques your interest or you want to have further discussion about, or other conditions that you think this type of analysis might be useful for, I'd love to support you on that.
Thank you, Ryan. We appreciate you. And I will definitely check it out. Do you have a anticipation date for when the peer-reviewed article will be published?
We're going through the second round of reviews right now. I'm not Dr. Colburn, I'm just regular Ryan. You know, without trying to be offensive here, I think there's some things that we're saying in there that are very, very well supported and are not about that are supported in the method. But that some folks are not used to hearing them that way. So we're having to fight a little bit back and forth on on claims made, but they're fully supported, and I expect the editor to see that clearly.
Got it. Any other questions from the New York team on the things that they're piloting?
Yeah, it looked like there was one more in the chat from Cindy Ingham. She asked, do you have plans to collaborate with your EHDI program re-follow-up of infants who test positive for CMV?
Yeah, we have a couple DOH initiatives regarding CMV. So it's also in our statute that any baby who fails the hearing screen is mandated to have a CCMV test. Not in dried blood spots, but by saliva, urine, I think it's urine. So we've had discussions with them about trying to collaborate on, positives that they get. We're assuming we will find more positives, which we're pretty sure of, because not all babies will fail the hearing screen initially. So anyway, we think that would be kind of an interesting collaboration. We've had a couple calls with both the EPI group and the EDI group, and we have representation on our advisory committee from them as well.
So just to understand your state process a little bit more, so the hearing screening and the blood spot screening is currently not connected?
No,
Is
they're
that-
not.
Okay. Okay, if there's no more questions, I'm going to move on to the next program. I know Kate from RTI sent us an update, and I forgot to put that in I think I have the slide deck. I apologize.
That's okay. I can talk through it if
Okay.
we can collect it here.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
apologize. I had it in the slide deck and then I saved it and it did not save. I apologize.
No worries. So for DMD, we have screened over 14,000 as a part of our early check study. We recently, well, it's been a few months actually, adjusted the cutoff. So we started with a single cutoff, and then we implemented additional birth weight and age-related cutoffs. So the data I'm talking about, that's cumulative over the entire screening period. We've had 92 screen positive. So, and of those, we offer next generation sequencing panel screening, and then also latent total CK testing at 1 month or later. We've had 60 negative genomic results and 12 positive. And of the 12 positive, there were 2 with pathogenic variants in DMD. The other ones were carriers or likely carriers. And then there was one, I think it's on their CLCN1, that's a dominant pathogenic variant. And then I'm trying to read through what we had before. Yeah, I think that will do it. And then for MPS II, we've screened over 67,000 newborns. We've had 11 screen positive, so our cutoff is 10%. And all of the cases so far, so we do GAGs on the dry blood spot as well as sequencing. And we've received results back for 9 of the 11. And all of those had negative GAGs. And 8 of the 9 had the same pseudodeficiency allele, and 1 had a different one. We also do blood enzyme confirmatory and urine GAGs, and so the urine GAGs all have been negative, and the enzyme has been low or deficient for all of these newborns with pseudodeficiencies. And the clinical visit was all normal.
So just, sorry, since I didn't have the slide up.
Mhm.
So no confirmed cases yet.
Correct.
Okay.
All of the ones we've seen have been pseudodeficiencies, so no true positives. That's correct.
Do you have any pseudodeficiencies that really stand out so far for MPS II that you're seeing repeatedly?
Yeah, so there 8 of the 9 that we've seen had the same pseudodeficiency. And I can put it in the chat. Maybe it's easier than saying
Saying it out loud.
it.
And Dr. Baker, I see that you have your hand up. You have a question?
Yeah, quick one, Kate. This is me. If I understand, so now you waive the consent, it means that every single newborns in North Carolina get screening for MPS II?
Correct. Yeah. So DMD, that's under early check, so that's consented. But MPS II, it's a research study with waiver of consent. So we're screening everyone who has leftover specimen.
That makes sense because it's on the RASP now. So everything will be done in RTI. So what's the relationship with the stat lab? So you do the reporting, you do the screening, everything?
Yes, the study does. So we just punch the specimens at the state lab, and then we do the screening at RTI and report. And then follow-up is at UNC.
Okay, thank you.
And confirmatory is at Duke. So we've got everybody enrolled.
And for the MPS II study, Kate, is it are you going to 100? Is a pilot just for 100K?
Yeah, so that depends on birth rate. So we were shooting for 140,000, but that kind of depends on when the study ends. So we'll have to see whether we get to 100 or whether we can do more than that. So the birth rate in North Carolina is about 10,000 a month. So.
And I think
That's to be determined. Yeah.
I think you said that the DMD, you guys were going to start wrapping that up, or you guys continue to plan for that.
Yeah, we're planning to wrap that up in the next 2 months.
There was a question in the chat for you. Joe Orsini asked, does a diagnostic enzyme assay differentiate between pseudo and true positives?
So we just get a result and all of them have been low to normal or deficient. So the results are around the cutoff. So I'm going to say no, not right now. We do think that we expect for the true positives to have even lower results. So for example, for the screening, we're seeing the results for the pseudodeficiency around 7% of the daily median, but one would expect that the true positives would have even lower results. And I think that's the case for the confirmatory enzyme at Duke as well.
So I see Joe has a thumbs up. Do you have any other questions for Kate?
Very quick.
Sure.
So given your description about pseudodeficiency around the 7%, are you planning to lower cutoff?
Not right now, because we don't have any true positives. So we can tolerate the rate. So we would rather keep the cutoff where it is so that we learn what we can from this pilot.
Thank you.
And you might have said this and I might have missed it, Kate. So are you getting the sequencing results before you do the confirmatory testing for families, or are you're doing the confirmatory, you're just going ahead and doing that?
So we tried to get the dry blood spot gags and sequencing as soon as possible, and it's been quite good, the turnaround time. So I think so far we've had those results before the clinical visit for all of the referred screen positives.
So they kind of know, I'm getting at, they kind of know before they go into clinic if they have pseudos or not.
Exactly, yeah. So that's helpful for the clinical team to have that information in hand.
May, do we have any other questions in the chat right now?
That was it.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, thank you, Kate. I'm not sure if you can, but if you can give us an update next time on the transition to your genomic studies, that would be very helpful too. Maybe we can get you on the rotation with Dr. Chen and Dr. Holmes about the genomic sequencing studies.
We can plan on that. That
All
sounds
right.
good.
Sounds good. And I'm not sure if Angela or anybody from Georgia was able to get on the call today. I will do a quick check. I don't see anybody. So we will get an email from her to get an update. And if not, I'm going to go ahead and move on to Dr. Parad and Brigham Women's pilot on DMD.
Sure. We continue to screen. We've screened 9,320 babies. We've had out of range CKMM levels that have gone to samples have gone to sequencing in 248 babies. And we still have not detected our first affected male. We've identified 8 variants in the category of either VUS, likely pathogenic or pathogenic, 6 females. 2 of them had deletions, 2 of them had duplications, 2 of them had VUS, and we've had 2 males with VUSs. And we are not officially reporting out VUS as only likely pathogenic or pathogenic. Otherwise, every month I tell you we're closer to our manuscript going out on CK levels. And again, I have to thank Deb Friedenberg for throwing out a question in this forum, which I think set us off to realize that we had sort of a unique data set in that we have through the electronic medical record, this being a hospital-based pilot, we can link the mother, the baby, and the CK level on 9,000 babies. So we've had some very interesting, and I think what will be useful information about factors that seem to elevate CK during labor and delivery. And we've really found very strong associations with a number of things that make, CK just a little bit loosey-goosey as a biomarker, including things like maternal fever, whether the delivery is assisted with vacuum or forceps, the duration of the second stage of labor or the third stage of labor, shoulder dystocia, failure to progress or fetal distress as an indication for cesarean section, 1 or 5 minute APGAR scores under 6, any sort of resuscitation in the delivery room, I think importantly, gestational age of birth seems to be more important than birth weight. And we continue to see a significant gender difference between the males and the females. And then even things like whether Pitocin is used for induction during labor. And we're not sure yet, but there also seem to be some racial differences, with Asians seemingly having the highest CK levels. So the last stage of our analysis is currently in linear and logistic regression modeling so that we can develop some attributable risk numbers that I think will, might be useful in coming back to think about perhaps cutoffs, but at the very minimum, how we can counsel families that have an initial elevated CK that we may be able to explain from some of these factors. So I will keep you posted as we complete this and submit.
Sounds like very important work, very informative for people that will do pilots, or if we do further studies using the CKMM. So looking forward to it.
I'm a little concerned to hear that RTI is stopping and we're the last man standing, especially given that the RUSP declined the initial submission. But at the moment, we're going to continue.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody has any updates on that, or if there's any information about other studies that might be coming up for DMD piloting or DMD screening, or it doesn't look like it's going to be added to any of the state panels, but if anybody else has any information on that, feel free to unmute yourself.
And yes, to May Baker, yes, we have, it's pretty much equal male and female. So only half of those are males. We haven't quite reached the 5,000 point, but the fates have not been with us in early true positive.
Thank you. I think you do in the consent based, right?
We obtained consent. We are doing this offering this as a clinical test, as an optional supplemental newborn screening test. And because there is genetic testing involved, the parents sign a clinical consent form, but it is not a research consent form.
Thank you. I'm curious for this consent, how you end up a male, female. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
We do tell them in the consent form that DMD is very unlikely in females, but not rare. But we didn't feel it. We thought it would be far too complicated and ethically also more challenging to only screen one sex. And we do have IRB approval from our hospital to do the data analysis, but we offer this to all parents, and we're upfront about the fact that we're mostly worried about males.
Thank you.
I have a comment with regards to last man standing. So DMD is, I think, generally on the sequencing panels. It will be on ours, so we'll still be screening for DMD, but not by CKMM.
Okay.
This is Nikki Armstrong with PPMD, and apologies for background noise. I'm traveling, but DMD has been submitted to newborn screening advisory panels in the state of Ohio and in the state of Minnesota. So those states are in the process of considering DMD newborn screening. So.
You said Ohio
legislation, or like to the advisory panel?
To this within the state advisory panel of both Minnesota and Ohio.
Thanks for that update, Nikki. And any other questions for Dr. Parada? You might have said this before. So you said you don't report out VUSs, but do you report out carriers if it's a known pathogenic? And so you do report out carriers for females.
Yes, we have a protocol for follow-up. We send them to the same DMD, neuromuscular clinic where there's a neuromuscular genetic counselor, and the CK gets repeated, and so there's somebody watching out for them, albeit it may not be necessary for some time.
Okay. And if we don't have any other questions, is there any other states that want to give any updates with pilots that they're considering or adding some of the conditions to the RUS? I see Tanya, you have your hand up.
Yes, hi Jennifer, how you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Good. I just wanted to add that next door over here in South Carolina, we'll be adding Krabbe to our newborn screening disorder in May of 2023.
Great.
Thanks.
May 2023?
Yes.
Do we have any updates from any other states? If not, I'm going to move on to the announcements. And then I also wanted to, since we didn't have a registration this time, I'm going to launch a poll to see if people could describe their role and check what applies.
Can we do more than one?
You should be able to.
Okay, just curious.
This is my first time with the poll, so we'll see. Let me know.
Yeah, they did let me check it too, so, all right.
May, we know you have to check them all, I think.
If we have a little bit time, can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, May.
Is anybody have some information about the G6PD related to newborn screening?
I know, May, we recently were contacted by the G6PD Deficiency Foundation and Dr. Brad Thorell, and they are forming a task force to look at a RUS nomination. So it's got several well-known folks in the G6PD arena, as well as the groups, some of the individuals that submitted kernicterus and hyperbilirubinemia a few years ago, I think in 2012, perhaps, to the advisory committee. So MBSTRN is helping out and just getting started on reminding ourselves about all the issues related to G6 deficiency.
Thank you. Yeah, I have some doctors in our state that she just lost the patient, so she's very motivated and trying to find out what's going on with that. Thank you.
And May, I know that there's some point of care testing and some blood spot screening testing too. Is there any specifics for that you're interested in knowing about, getting information for?
Oh, mostly is for the dry blood spots, like in the state system. And I do believe Cognema have the assay.
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, just want to know if anybody else in around the states think about that. Amy, your information is very important. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and May, I think we'd love to have you connect with that group. And I think the way I understand it, there's a law in New York State that I think the point of care testing is being conducted in Mount Sinai and a few other hospitals. So just starting again to get some information about that screening and what the law is doing, and then what this group wants to do related to a RUS nomination.
Well, that would be great. Thank you.
I may. This is Chris from Tennessee. If you want to give me a call after this, we can talk a little bit about what Tennessee is doing. We
Okay,
have a Butler assay that's kind of like a spot assay. We read it with the UV light, and it's done on a very small population because we have a contract with some folks in South America. So I can explain to you what we do here if you're interested.
oh, absolutely, I will contact you.
Okay.
I think now I'm remembering, May, too, that on our initial task force call, they said Pennsylvania screens, and so does District of Columbia.
Yeah, I know Pennsylvania because they go through the Pergamo kit. Yes, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm guessing DC does too, because they use PerkinElmer as well, don't they?
Thank you. I got a lot of information. Thank you.
I know,
everybody.
glad to be helpful, Yep, and then Eleanor said they do. Thanks, Eleanor. May, checking in with you. Do we have any questions in the chat?
Kate Tullis just asked a question, but Eleanor answered it. So she asked, does anyone know if Minnesota has gone live with their CMV screen? And they have.
Yeah, and we were thinking about getting I know Minnesota came on a call before and reported. I'm not sure if anybody's from the state is on there now. I see Carrie's on here. But talking to some of the clinicians there, maybe we can get them to present some more information on their call later this year about what's updates from their CMV. But if anybody's on the call now wants to give some information, that would be great. And we have another comment from Jillian. Jillian, did you want to unmute yourself? I'm sorry, I'm not doing a great job of reading the chat.
Sure. So we reviewed it was recommended for a subcommittee in Nebraska for G6PD. And the subcommittee, it wasn't, the highest score for the evidence, but we did move it forward and it eventually was voted on our committee. The difficulty we felt like, or at least our leadership felt, was that it would probably take about 0.5 of an FTE to follow up on G6PD in Nebraska, which we're required to statutorily and by our regulations for any disease we screen for. And when we looked into it, the states that do screen, like Pennsylvania and DC, they don't really do any active follow-up for these cases. They're just notified, like the primary care provider would just be notified via FICA fax. But there is no any assurance if that's the actual diagnosis or if anything was done, and certainly no long-term follow-up or anything like that. And so we just didn't feel like in Nebraska that was something that was actionable at the time, although we felt like, looking at the evidence that it was important, but that it would take a significant amount of time for our very small program. So.
Is that something that you guys are still evaluating in Nebraska?
I don't know how much our committee at this point, we just rediscussed at this last meeting in January. I don't know how much of a push they still have for it or a drive, considering that the AAP updated, some of the recommendations, or at least is kind of speaking more to, how much of the population really is vulnerable or has those possibilities of having G6PD. And so when they're seeing a patient that has hyperbilirubinemia in those first couple of days, that G6PD needs to be considered. So I felt that they were a little bit more reassured that perhaps it's going to be, point of care testing might be done more frequently. So I would say we're not actively considering it at this time. And we also use PerkinElmer, so we would have the ability to add that on if that were ever the case, but.
Yeah, it's interesting with this because there is states that are using the blood spot, and then there's, the point of care testing. So it's interesting how this is going to pan out.
I agreed. I think part of the other issue was that, we looked at, we could very quickly determine where there might be a deficiency, but going to the genetic, like the molecular part of it would take quite a bit of time, and perhaps after really the clinical significance, probably the most vulnerable time for those infants, you know, if they were found to have G6PD deficiency, probably would be passed. You know, if you're at like day 9 or something, you're probably very likely to have already had kernicterus if you have G6PD, if you were vulnerable to that. And so it might not be as useful of information, perhaps, you know, as a newborn screen, if that makes sense. I mean, obviously valuable information for the infant for the rest of their life, but maybe not as prevention of kernicterus. So
Jillian, can you remind us, so what triggered the review of that in Nebraska?
one of our committee members is a neonatologist and had a case where they eventually was found to be G6PD as the culprit. And so he, you know, had not, although he'd been a neonatologist for many years and in multiple different places in the US, hadn't really thought about how important it was and just wanted us to review it. And so he's the one that called for the subcommittee, and that's kind of how it all started to be explored. So
Gotcha.
Thanks for the update, Jillian. And thanks for the question, May. Maybe we should have some more conversations later this year about G6PD as well. We'll keep you guys up to date on that. Any other comments?
Oh, I just want to say thank you, everybody. And it's very, very informative and helpful.
Great. Is there any other comments for anybody about things they added or things that they would want to know more information about? If not, I'm going to move on to the announcements. So, Dr. Brower, Dr. Chan, did you want to take the next piece?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Here are some of our exciting events that's happening. So I hope everyone is registered or will be registering for the ACMG annual clinical genetics meeting in March in Utah. And we are so excited that MBS Channel would be hosting a few sessions there. So we hope you all attend. The first one, as you can see here, is personalized medicine part of the problem or the solution to healthcare access and equity, charting a course for genomics to lead the way. It's on Friday, March 17th, from 1:30 to 3. Then we're so excited that we're also excited for all these sessions, but specifically we're excited that we would be hosting our session will be hosted during the Writing House Symposium, which is setting the stage for genomic sequencing of all newborns. It will be a really great discussion during that session. Dr. Kingsmore and Melissa Parisi from NICHD will be moderating the session. And then we also have a learning lounge and roundtable where attendees will be able to get in-depth discussions with some of our members who have used the MBRCN data tools and resources to advance their newborn screening research. So if you've been using it or thinking about using our tools, definitely connect with our clinician researchers here and getting some ideas how they apply our tools for their research. And we have a booth, which is 829. Definitely stop by. Dr. Jennifer Taylor, Dr. Brower, and a few of our team members will be at the booth, and we have some interactive activities. And please stop by if you want to pick up some of our education materials to take home back to your institution. That's all I have here. Next is in celebration of Rare Disease Month, which just happened in February. I think it's every month that we need to celebrate rare disease. And so we're really excited that Dr. Amy Brow will be speaking at the Rare Disease Innovation and Partnership Summit. And the session will be on modernizing the system to sustain newborn screening. And this is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Next. So our latest podcast is with Annie Kennedy from the Every Life Foundation for Rare Disease. Here she shares her personal journey and career journey on how newborn screening research advances through rare disease awareness, support, and advocacy work. So definitely take a look, definitely take a listen to her podcast where she shared how she first started and where we as a newborn screening community can help contribute through advocacy work, in addition to research and all the great work that you are all doing at the state labs. So that's all I have for announcements. And definitely follow us on social media.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. And just to let everybody know, these calls again are the first Thursdays of each month at 2 p.m. Eastern. Our next call will be on April 6th at 2 p.m. I think in May that falls on the same day as the advisory committee. So we probably will move that call to a Tuesday. But if you have any questions or comments or concern, please email myself or Dr. Brower. And if you have colleagues that have missed this call, you can always get them caught up on our NBS Trend YouTube channel. So thank you again. And we will give you a couple minutes back of time. Unless you guys have any other comments. Thanks, everyone.